views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
When the static of life fills your brain and the world seems a little too insane, just twist that dial, don't hesitate. Feeling with good vibes away. Tune in and Take 12 for some joy and cheer. It's the sound of hope coming in crystal clear. Recovery talk, music so grand, a beacon of light, a helping hand.
Well, greetings, one and all. You have tuned into the world's oldest and original recovery talk and positive music radio station and podcast. I am your host, the Monty Man, and I am joined this week by our co-host, of course, Roger McDermott from Huntington Beach, California, Tom Williams, CEO of Came to Believe, and Captain Tanya Garrett from the Salvation Army, Long Beach, California. This is going to be a very, very important show, so stay tuned. It's going to be good.
When the shadows of doubt cloud your mind and you're searching for a sign to find, we'll play your heartstrings.
The Salvation Army, the AA co-founders, and us is the topic for this week's Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. And we are so glad you tuned in.
Recovery talk and music so grand, a beacon of light, a helping hand.
There we go. Roger's dancing there. All right, my friends. Welcome to the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. And welcome to all of you, Captain Tanya, Tom, Roger. It's good to see you guys all here. Again, it looks like the listeners don't see this like we see it, but it looks like the Hollywood Squares here. We're filling up the screen. This is a very important show, I believe, because there is something going on in the 12-step community, the recovery community, that people really need to be aware of. It is my opinion, and everybody knows how overly opinionated I can be, right, Roger?
Yes.
It is my opinion that today's Alcoholics Anonymous is missing the boat in many areas. But there's good news. The methods and the way the founders of AA did things when the success rate was so high, I think it's coming back, guys, and I think that a lot of the credit is due to the two entities we're going to be talking with today, Came to Believe Recovery and the Salvation Army. This is a movement that I think, if anything, is going to save some of the watered-down stuff going on within the 12-step world. I think this is. One of my mentors, Chris S., made the statement to me that it's very possibly going to be the thing that reignites this incredible movement that happened many years ago with Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob, Clarence Snyder, and the boys, all these guys. And so it's an absolute pleasure to have you guys on. I want to let you know right off the bat, listeners, if you would like to win some recovery music, you have an opportunity to do that right now. If you will email us at Take12Radio, that's T-A-K-E, the number 12, radio at Comcast.net. The first email I get, and you give me your contact information within the U.S. now, and tell me you want your recovery music, I'm going to send you a recovery music CD from Take 12 Recovery Radio with 19 songs from recovery recording artists that have been on our show. And we're also going to send you a flash drive with over a gig of recovery music for you to enjoy. Very first email that sends Take12Radio at Comcast.net an email and let us know you want your music. We'll send that out to you. All right. Really quick, I got to pay for this show. Listen, if you feel stuck in your recovery, there's a way to get unstuck, and one of the ways you can do. And I love what Came to Believe says. You're not stuck. You stopped. So if you stopped and you're just kind of in that limbo, and maybe you've been going to meetings, you've been drinking bad coffee, you're tired of hearing the same old thing over and over again. Maybe this little book here called 12 Essential Insights to Emotional Sobriety by our good friend Dr. Alan Berger will help get you unstuck. It's all about emotional sobriety, what Bill Wilson referred to as the next frontier. I would encourage you to get it. Go to abphd.com for your autographed copy of 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety. All right. We're going to take a really quick break, and we're going to come back. And we're going to talk to Captain Tanya Garrett of the Salvation Army in Long Beach and the CEO of Came to Believe Recovery, Tom Williams. And, of course, as always, with that character right there, Roger McDermott. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Listen to this.
Ring, 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 all season long. Ding, dong, ding, and dong, ding, dong. Ching, ching, ching. Anyone can tell they're doing the most good. Helping those no one else would. With the Salvation Army bill.
Hey everyone, I'm Kenny Chesney. Wherever good can overcome, that's where your contributions to the Salvation Army go. Please consider donating to your Nashville Salvation Army this Christmas season. We're together, we're doing the most good.
Dong, ding, dong, ching, ching, ching. Anyone can tell they're doing the most good. Helping those no one else would. With the Salvation Army bill.
Hey, this is Alicia Martinez from Came to Believe Recovery, and you're listening to the recovery talk and positive music of Take 12 Recovery Radio.
That's right. Thank you, Alicia. Okay, so if you'd like to tune into the Came to Believe Recovery podcast, we post that every Wednesday. It is usually up no later than 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But really, what I really want to introduce you to, listeners, is this important movement that is going on with the partnership between Came to Believe Recovery and the Salvation Army. Now, for those who may not know, right, which I can't imagine, although I was talking to Captain Tanya off the air about, I don't know where I've been all these years. I didn't know to the degree that the Salvation Army does their work that they did as much stuff as they do. Tanya, Captain Tanya, you are the program administrator for the Long Beach ARC, which stands for Adult Rehabilitation Center, right? And your center has how many beds?
Our center has 101 beds.
101 beds. And
Right.
how many do you have filled right now?
Right now, we're at 56 beds. So
56 beds.
we got about 45 beds we need to fill. So that's good that we're talking today. So maybe we'll bring in some guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the Salvation Army, really quickly, if you can, explain to the listeners who may not know, and I'm going to ask kind of a crazy question here. It may sound silly, but the Salvation Army is more than bell ringers and thrift stores. True?
True. The Salvation Army is a Christian movement, and our goal is to save lives. And so we do it on very many different ways, from recovery ministry to social services, handing out food boxes. But what we are is our church, and we're trying to save lives. So the wonderful thing is that we're able to work with Came to Believe to bring the 12 steps into the center, also bringing Jesus. And most importantly, that's what our goal is to do. Tell people about what Jesus can do for them.
Now, prior to when I say recently, I'm talking about within the year 2024. Prior
Right.
to that, correct me if I'm wrong here. You guys were presenting at least step 1 through 5, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So the requirement was to complete steps 1 to 5 by graduation, which is in the first 6 months of program. And our hope was always that they continue, but we found that mostly people were not continuing. They would get to step 5 and they thought they were done, and they'd go on with their lives. And we found that people were coming back because they need to get through the entirety of the steps. One thing Tom says is, how are you going to build your house if you don't have all the tools? So this is giving us an opportunity to get them the tools right up front.
Okay. So would you say that what Came to Believe is doing, and we're going to go talk to Tom here in just a minute to find more about that in detail, but what they're doing with Salvation Army has been the missing piece, perhaps?
I do, because it's giving them the tools right at the beginning of their program. So they have a foundation that's laid out to them that they can carry through their program, so they're not lost trying to figure it out as they're going. They're getting everything that they need at the beginning. That doesn't mean that they don't dig and they don't continue to go further, but it's giving them a start at the beginning of program.
So how long has the Salvation Army been around?
Over 150 years.
Okay.
Yeah, over.
So way longer than Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yes.
Right. Working in the field of helping people at some degree anyway to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body way before the 12 steps show.
Right. And that's exactly what William Booth's mission was. He's seen all the drunkards and all the people that were out in the streets, and he said he left outside of the church walls and went to the street to bring them in and make them a part of what they were trying to do, save lives. Yeah. And so that's been our mission from day one. It will continue to be our mission. I believe there's some history with the early founders of AA and the Salvation Army.
Yes, there is.
So, yeah. So it's not something that we're not new to, but I do think because of the way the recovery world is today, I do think the foundation of the spiritual component has been lost in the rooms of AA. So we're just trying to be a part of bringing that back.
So, okay, you are playing a major role in really shedding a lot of credibility on the Came to Believe recovery folks within the Salvation Army, right? I mean, you've really been instrumental in helping get the word out about Came to Believe recovery.
I'm blushing a little bit because I'm just doing what God's called me to do, and I was challenged with this not challenged in a negative way, but if you challenge me with something, here we go, right?
Yeah.
And so I got challenged, and Tom and I have been working together, so we're just trying to make it appropriate for an institution, right? Because that's really what we're doing. We are an institution, unfortunately. That's what we're doing. We got to structure this. And so Tom and I have been working together to structure this so that it can work within our centers.
And by the way, just to give a shout out to your husband and you both work in this ministry of the Salvation Army, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my husband and I both are in recovery.
Right.
So we get it and we understand it, and we're just blessed by the opportunity that God has given us to work and do this ministry. And so any way that we can continue the mission, that's what we're here to do.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a minute over to Tom Williams, the CEO of Came to Believe Recovery. By the way, you can visit that website at cametobelieverecovery.org. Captain Tanya, Salvation Army, all I got to do is Google Salvation Army, right? And it's going to be all over the place. So, Tom Williams, hello there, my good friend. How the heck are you, buddy?
Well, I'm hanging in there up here in the Big Apple, New York City.
Yeah, we're going to have to get you closer to that mic. I can
there
you go.
Up in the Big Apple, New York City. I'm freezing, wanting to come back to California as soon as I can.
So, okay, first of all, tell the listeners what Came to Believe Recovery is, a little bit of history of that, and then talk about how in the heck did Came to Believe Recovery hook up with the Salvation Army, and what are you guys doing?
Well, it's a great question, loaded question that could take hours, but I can do it pretty quick. We really, and one of the things, Monty, that I always correct is that Came to Believe, we're not our own program. It's not a new program. It's not anything that we came up with. Came to Believe Recovery presents the 12-step programs as the founders presented it back in the 1930s and the 1940s. And what that really is the 12-step program quickly. And like Captain Tanya said, we give you all the tools right away, and then you work at 10, 11, and 12. some of our listeners will say, what's he talking about? You have to get a little deeper into the 12-step program to grab that lingo. But basically, we take you through this 12-step process and leave you with a set of tools to grow your life. We got our start, Monty, back with one of the founders, one of the guys that was the first 40 members of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the gentlemen that actually helped write the book, helped come up with this program that they really pulled from the Bible, which nobody wants to know, but it's the truth. Came from the Bible and was written into this thing that's the most successful thing in addiction recovery that's ever been discovered. And they sponsored a gentleman that now is one of the founders of Came to Believe Recovery, who grabbed this movement, Monty, and said, we've got to bring this back to the way it was in the 30s and 40s after they saw such a decrease in the effectiveness of the 12-step program through the 50s, 60s, 70s, really right up to today, where the success rates in the rooms, really in all recovery movements across the nation, are very low. The Salvation Army on its own has some of the higher rates, and they don't even like their rates. They don't sound that high, but they're higher than many of the rates around the country. And so that was our movement, Monty, was to bring the message back, to show everybody the way they did it.
And so that was specifically Clarence Snyder and his wife, Grace, right?
Right.
And he sponsored
Steve Foreman and Jack Rapp and Dale Morfitt, three gentlemen that then basically took the reins to continue the retreat programs around the country. And that's how it started, Monty, with these weekend retreats where they were taking people through the steps the way they were doing it back in the beginning, the way Dr. Bob and Bill and all the original guys were doing it, very quickly over a day or two or three, maybe a couple of weekends, but very quickly through the process and giving them their lives back. And we started doing it in Clarence, and they started doing it. It spread all over the country.
And Steve Foreman, is he your sponsor?
He is.
Yeah, so you are, so it's Clarence Snyder, Steve Foreman, Tom Williams.
Exactly.
So wow, that's pretty amazing. Now, let me ask you, what are some? So you're talking about doing the steps quickly. You know, and I know, we all four know there are people listening right now that are going, yeah, okay, whatever, guys, right? So what are some of the objections that you've heard about doing the steps that quickly, and what is actually happening as a result?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest objection is always the fourth step, guys. I mean, the fourth step has been interpreted to mean a negative autobiography, a very long, drawn-out process of an individual outlining the entirety of their addiction life in great detail. You know, the book really never says that. Not really. The book doesn't say that you have to do that. So that's a big block, Monty. And so what's happening is people are not getting to the 9th step and the 10th step promises, which are the freedom of the program. They're not reaching this place where their manager that the founders had takes over their life and begins to inspire them and bring them into recovery. So they're relapsing, they're failing, they're not continuing, they're wallowing. That's the first stop, is the fourth step. And what's happening is it's keeping people in bondage.
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree. I've noticed that more of my men are having more of a difficult time when it's time to do the fourth step. I can tell when a gentleman's on his fourth step because his behavior, his just everything about him is different. What I don't think we realize is that we're reliving trauma the way that they've been doing it, rewriting this book that you would call, right? They're reliving trauma instead of getting down to the gut of what the problem is, and it's the character defects that are blocking us, not the things that we've done. We already know what we've done, right?
Right.
And getting to the root of what it is, and then asking Jesus to take those things away.
So the focus, it sounds like, is what you're saying is we've found people are focusing more on the symptoms than they are the causes and conditions.
Right.
For sure.
And we could all write hundreds of pages of our symptoms, right? And I think maybe to some degree, Roger, let's have you chime in here. To some degree, do addicts and alcoholics kind of like focusing on the symptoms?
Yeah, I think they spend a lot of time talking about symptoms, and not getting to the root issue. You know,
Yeah.
everybody that I talk to about the program, usually the first response is, once you get past the, what are you talking about? They get to the point where they say, how come nobody ever told me this? Just like there
Right.
was no big book and 12 steps in the first 4 years of AA in Akron. They read the Bible, they read Sermon on the Mount, 1 Corinthians 13, and the book of James. How come people don't know that? You know, and then if you look at what Dr. Bob did with Clarence Snyder, he took 4+ hours and took him through the 6 steps of the Oxford group. How come nobody knows that? And it goes on. And I say, well, I found out I was 12 years sober. Nobody had told me either. But now that I know, I'm out trying to share the message with everybody because, frankly, we're killing people by not telling them the truth and the power of the program. So what are we screwing around with? It's like, how long do you want to be sick? That's the question I ask people. Well, what? Read Dr. Bob's Nightmare. He said put 50% of the effort that you were used to getting another drink into this program, and God will never leave you and never forsake you, and the program will never fail.
Right.
So we were certainly committed to our addictions. So why not commit to this and do the deal? And nowhere out there in the business world does it, or anywhere else, do you go and they take 12 months to teach you how to do whatever your job is.
They don't
Doesn't
even take
happen.
12 months. They don't even take 12 months to do an inventory, right?
No.
They do an inventory right away so they could do a check and balance to see what they need to do different next year.
Right.
Or the next day, right?
Well, that's a good point for a talk, Captain.
Oh, I
The
wrote it
12
in a sermon once, that's why.
Businesses, if they took an inventory once a year or it took them 4 months to do it, they'd be out of business.
Yeah, they certainly
makes-
would.
Of course.
No,
of
but
course.
we're against this wave. You know, Roger mentioned something that we hear often, which is, why didn't anybody tell us this? And we hear it often, but and it frustrates us and it inspires us to keep going, knowing
Right.
that then we have to keep going. We're fighting such a wave, guys, which you all on this panel know, but maybe some of you listening don't. And there's so much pushback in the recovery world. You know, 80%, maybe larger amount, would say what we say. They would say, we never heard, why didn't anybody ever tell me this? And they are just embedded in recovery. They're embedded in the insurance worlds. They're embedded in organizations. They're embedded in medical systems. They're even embedded in churches. And we are pushing back against a wave. And this is what has excited me, is for us to get partnered up with the Salvation Army, which is it's like, in having the U.S. military join your little coup.
Yeah, it
you've
is.
got a bunch of troops. Well, what you have is an organization who, I remember sitting, guys, with majors, the two majors trimmers, in a room in their headquarters, and Roger was there, and they just went, well, we've known about this, like Captain Tyson. It's not that this idea of the 12 steps that went quickly, and then it was a God program, and then it was a focus on the God of the Bible and Jesus, that was the power behind the steps. It's not that they didn't know that. They had just never had anybody come to them and show them the process like the founders did it in such a way that they thought maybe it would work within their system. That's what our secret sauce was. We're taking this system, this way of doing it that was handed down to us, and we have it in such a way that it all of a sudden made sense to them, and they said, oh my, we have to do this. And having that, forget about the credibility for Came to Believe. That's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it for saving people's lives, like Captain Tanya. We're in it to save lives.
Yep.
And when the Salvation Army starts saving lives at a high level, other people start looking.
Right.
And all of a sudden, pay attention. I was telling you guys about a airing of a movie that's going to happen in New York City tonight on human trafficking, of which addiction is a big part of. Anyway, it's in the same category. And I talked to these leaders about, what is he doing? Well, we're working with the Salvation. Who? Who are you working with? What? Where? Oh, we want to talk to you. So I love all that, because it means, resources and things and access to other organizations, and the ability for this talk to come and get Captain Tanya to come here to the Big Apple and talk to some of them. Look, she's looking like she's a little scared. She shouldn't be scared, but it's really inspiring. I mean, it really is about that. It's about, we've reached more people, men and women, by being able to go into the ARCs than we have would ever have had a chance to
Right.
go to. And now we have even more. And so such a platform for recovery. I mean, how many people even knew what the Salvation Army was doing in recovery?
Right.
Right? The
Had no
largest
idea.
offer of free
I didn't.
recovery in the nation.
And that's
Right.
that's a good thing to say. Free recovery. We don't
Free.
charge. You don't need to be on Medi-Cal. You don't need anything. You just need a desire to want to change your life.
So am I
Right.
correct? Am I correct in making this statement? The Salvation Army is the largest social services organization in the world,
It's
Or-
pretty big. Yeah.
certainly in the
Yeah.
United States, right?
Right.
Yeah,
No, in the
Catholic
world.
Charities
In the
is
world?
pretty close. Catholic Charities is pretty close, so we got to be
Right.
careful. But it's about the largest. They certainly are the largest provider of free adult rehabilitation in the country, hands
Right.
down.
Right.
So now we had the original 12-step
Right.
process. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Came to Believe Recovery isn't really Came to Believe Recovery. It's original AA.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
It's original
Thank
AA. It is Alcoholics Anonymous at
Exactly.
its truest form. And bringing Alcoholics Anonymous, like I said, the title of the show is the Salvation Army, AA co-founders, and us. Bringing that together in the largest social services organization in the world, and having this marriage of sorts happening is absolutely huge. I mean, I don't think people understand, even us, how huge that really is, right, guys?
Right.
Totally agree.
We're excited to see what it's going to look like. We've just started. It's just been a couple months.
Yeah.
And we're already starting to see change and people getting excited. And just imagine what it's going to look like in a year from now. At this point, my program here in Long Beach is completely operated by the structure that Came to Believe has developed, and they're continuing to develop more. And throughout the Western Territory, we're working together with some of our other centers, the administrators from other centers, to how we can, incorporate this throughout our entire territory. So we look forward. It's brand new, but it's exciting. We're already seeing change. I've already seen guys go, Captain, I never made it past the 5th step, and I'm so excited that I'm doing this now. And so I'm excited. I've done I've done the 12 steps now 5 times in the last couple of months. So it's kind of cool. It's been like a renewal for me, So
So listeners, we're talking to Captain Tanya Garrett from the Salvation Army in Long Beach, California, part of the Western group of Salvation Armies, and the CEO Tom Williams of Came to Believe Recovery, and of course my co-host and Tape 12 Recovery radio contributor Roger McDermott from Huntington Beach, California. So, in a nutshell, we're showing up. We're introducing this idea. How many think you can go through the 12 steps in 3
Right.
days? No hands go up. How many think it's
Right.
going to take a year? Every hand goes up. And then, and barely anybody believes it can happen. And then not even halfway through the weekend, snot's flying, tears are flowing.
Right.
People are turning their will and their life over to the care of the God who is God.
right.
None of this mumbo jumbo stuff.
It's kind of funny watching their face on Friday, especially after they spent the day at WTU, and then they come and they're like, they got to sit through this, and they all look down and they're like, and then come Monday morning, they're excited, they're feeling renewed, they're looking forward to it. It's a wonderful thing to watch.
So one of the things that I witnessed, and Roger and I have been blessed to be part of this to some degree. Roger a little more than myself, but going to these retreats. I've been to the city team up in Portland, Pasadena, in Southern California, Long Beach, Anaheim. One of the things that happened that I want to share with the listeners that it blew my mind, and it was exciting. It just tells you that when God's in control, mountains are moved.
Right.
There's an organization within Alcoholics Anonymous, a group called Dogs on the Roof.
Mhm.
Now, Dogs on the Roof is a big deal, at least in Southern California. I mean, they're kind of known to be, the rough, gruff, crowd, the shut up and sit down, take the cotton out of your ears, shove it in your mouth, kind of group, and all that. And, no nonsense kind of stuff. And,
Yeah.
the old timers, right? And they were very skeptical of this whole thing, but then they showed up it at the Anaheim ARC, and they were blown away, right? So, Tom, Tanya, even Roger, you guys want to share about like what the change you're seeing, even in some of the people that are skeptical that have been around for a long time? Why are they convinced? Why is this so convincing to them?
Let me just add a little background to this discussion. I've been going to the Anaheim Salvation Army since 2009. And
Yeah.
I was first told about Came to Believe by Dick B., who wrote the foreword to the workbook.
Right.
But I had never been to a retreat until December of 23. So that's 15 years. But I started going to Salvation Army, and the fellowship, or the panel, if you will, that we called it, was called Shepherd's Door. And the reason was, it wasn't a classic AA panel, because I wanted to talk about the founders. I wanted to talk about the fact that they used the Bible, that they read Sermon on the Mount, 1 Corinthians 13, and the Book of James, and I wanted to talk about the 12 steps. And typically, when you're an AA panel, that's not traditional. So I've been doing it. I'd been doing it for 14, 15 years, and then I met Tom. And he asked me to come speak at a retreat in Malibu in December of 2023. And what I found is after 15 years of already going to Salvation Army, now the circle's complete, and I have a format. So we met with, Commander Nelson and Major Trimmers, and Tom came out and did a wonderful presentation twice. And guess what? You got to open the doors now to bring this to all the Salvation Armies. And it's like, my story is the story. Nobody had told me. Then I started talking about it, and now people realize that this is the way it's worked the best from the get-go. Why don't we just do it? Let's just do it.
Let's go back even further. When you and I met.
Yes,
right?
2008.
I've got sketches all over my workbook. This is the listeners. This is the Came to Believe Recovery Legacy Guide workbook that's used at the retreats, and it's edited by Dick B. Now, Dick B., for those who may not know, I truly believe, and I think most people would agree, is probably the foremost authority on the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, hands down. Written almost 40 books on the subject. The guy, we lost Dick here a few years back, but his legacy continues on. I had the honor of speaking at a Dick B conference down in Southern California, and that's where you and I met.
Correct.
Right? And
Correct.
then Dick B and I did a show for a couple of years called the AA History Show. Now, I had no idea what God was already stirring up. Right? And then Roger comes to me years later and says, hey, you got to check out this Came to Believe thing, which again really isn't Came to Believe. It's AA at its purest form.
It's AA.
It's Alcoholics Anonymous. It is AA. Listen, the sole purpose of any AA meeting is to teach people and guide people through a 12-step process so they can develop a relationship with a power greater than themselves to help them solve their problem. If that meeting is not doing that, that is not AA.
So I think that's
not AA.
I think that's what we're losing today is a lot of people not understanding their need for that spiritual component, right? They're leaning on their own understanding of what to do. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of these groups like Dogs on the Roof. I was in Anaheim at one point, so I know who they are. Good people have a good heart, and they want to save lives. But we have to remember that what it's founded on is a spiritual connection with God. And so when we take that out and we put in things like the light bulb or the doorknob or whatever, is we're giving them a idol to look up to instead of the Creator himself. And then we wonder why we have a world that is so addicted to these drugs and the way their lives are today. Why we have such an epidemic is because we're giving them something that's not going to give them anything back. The true source that we need is Jesus Christ. And so I think for that question that you asked about, like Dogs on the Roof, they're seeing what they seen was, oh, this makes sense, but nobody's ever been able to show us what that is and what that looks like. And I know with my sponsors and our groups, they've been wanting to understand it themselves, but didn't even know that they didn't know to understand it, right?
Yeah.
And so we're giving them
Exactly.
a piece, right? We're giving a piece of that component that they didn't even know how to give to the men, right? That spiritual part. They can dig deep in the big book. I asked a guy the other day, so how often do you read your big book? He said, every day. I said, how often do you read your Bible? He said, once a month. I said, don't you think that's a problem? Right? So it's not that these sponsors don't have a heart and that they don't want to love them and that they don't want to support them, because they know for them to stay sober, they need to do that, right? And that's what discipleship is. And that's what we don't understand. So now that they've been introduced to it, they see it. We're giving them that spiritual part that they wanted to give but just didn't know how to give. Right?
I love the way, Tom, that you and the team present this whole thing. You are very adamant about telling them, listen, we're not here to tell you that you're doing it wrong. We're not here to say it's the only way. What we're here to tell you is this is what they did.
Right.
And so if you want what we have and you're willing to go to anything to get it, that means do what they did.
Right.
Then you're ready to follow these directions. That's what the original manuscript said. They call it directions, right? We don't like directions because so we call it steps. But that's what we do. So if you want what somebody has, do what they do. It's a pretty simple concept, right? But the buts get in the way. But you don't know my history with the church, or but I was dragged to church. Were you? And so we get all this stuff in there. And the political correctness and everything else. I think if we look at the evolution of Alcoholics Anonymous and the evolution of our country, they kind of go down. They're kind of going down the same road. But now we're taking an exit and we're getting back to the original when it worked the best. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? And so I think the way you said it, and I said it in a meeting the other day, I said, listen, it's God as we understood him. How did they understand him? It was past tense. And so that's what I want to know, because I'm going to look at something that's going to change my life. I want to know how to do it when it was being done and it had the most success. Okay, so we got to go back in time a little bit here and apply and implement those principles the way they did it. We do not need a revision of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, like this plain language big book nonsense. We don't need. All we need to do is go back to the way it was originated and just do that. And you guys are doing that, Tom. And what's happening is people's lives are changing. And it's not just an emotional high at the end of a weekend, right? You're leaving people at these centers. You're teaching people. Talk a little bit about the modules and the videos that you're leaving for people. You're not just doing a retreat and saying, bye-bye, see you later.
Well, and then, I just want to reiterate, too, that it's what a disarming statement when I say to them, listen, we're not telling you what to do. We're telling you what they did.
Right.
And what we do.
Did. Yeah.
And it's very disarming to people who want to get their back against the wall to say, you're telling us this, you're telling us that. And we say, no, we're not. We're not telling you anything. We're telling you what we did. But we are not going to lie about what they did. We are not going to water it down. We are not going to whitewash that this is what was done. There's a lot of things going on out there, guys. Pick one that you want. You can play baseball, you can play football, you can play soccer, but you can't use interchangeable balls and fields to play any one of the sports. You got to stay with them. One of the things I think that we're dialing back in the community, and Captain Tanya could speak to this too, but I'm sure it's the same thing at the ARCs, is all the guys in there, 90% I would say, have had some 12-step exposure when they walk in. They know about them. So even in there, we're dialing back things that the guys have learned and known. And it's not like we got the guys in the 1930s and nobody knew anything about any of this. And the only thing they heard was the first time they heard it. So there is that element too. And what we have done, Monty, you're right, is we've developed some modules, some class modules. Really, they are to facilitate conversations in a fellowship, very much like what the founders probably were doing. And we know they were doing. They took guys through the steps, and then they came back to a meeting every week. But what it was a discussion where they were sharing their experience, strength, and hope. They were giving each other support. They were helping each other do 10, 11, and 12, teaching each other how did you get through this and how did you get through that. these modules that we've written help that. It's helped develop a fellowship. These men and women can go and sit together, and from what I'm hearing, the feedback is that it is facilitating wonderful conversations about, it's not doing the steps over again. It's going back and it's going deeper. It's developing the principles in your life that you were introduced to, that you accepted, that God has imparted into you, this new character, now honing it and learning how to walk in this new character. And these modules, these classes, these support material that we've supplied to the Salvation Army is such a wonderful thing, because it allows them to use them in this kind of controlled environment for a while to get good at 10, 11, and 12. And the expectation and hope, because our God is this kind of guy.
Right.
I see him saying, listen, Tom, you've needed to be able to not just show the steps, but what the guys were doing. So here, I'm going to let you do it at the Salvation Army, where they got the guys sitting here. And let's bring this thing back, right? I could see him sitting up there going, because there is no fellowship for them to go to in this world, let's get it started again. But anyway, so that's what we're doing, Monty. And it's very exciting for all of us to see it and hear the excitement.
So I'm going to give a shameless plug here for our podcast, the Came to Believe Recovery podcast. We have a version of that that we edit specifically for the Salvation Army. And Tanya, can you speak to that a little bit, how you guys are using those?
So they Came to Believe after the retreat that they did here in Long Beach, they developed videos to go with all the steps. So it's basically when the guys are first coming into program, they're having a retreat right away. So all the men that came in that week, they're coming together, they're watching these videos. In between every video, which is the different steps, we have staff that are trained in Came to Believe, and the founders of AA, they understand it. They have been to the retreats, they understand the language, and then they're breaking it down a little bit more for them. As soon as they're done with the retreat, then they join what is called Recovery Assurance, which are classes that inspire us and encourage us to live a 10 and 11 and 12 step every day. And then the commitment that the sponsors are now making, because we've already got them through the 12 steps, is they're now making a commitment to us that they're going to work with them and continue to take them through the journey of living a 10, 11, and 12 step out every day. We also do the Came to Believe podcast for our rehab issues class. So we're just incorporating the language of Came to Believe into our program throughout the week. There's more things that actually, as I'm on this committee, and there's more things that are coming to mind for me that I want to challenge Tom with as we continue to grow this. But throughout the territory, the hope is, and what it looks like it's going to be, is that all the centers are doing this throughout the week with their beneficiaries.
Wow.
5 centers as of right now in the Western Territory are. So that's encouraging. Yeah.
And so at the Anaheim retreat, Hawaii showed up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And were they a bit skeptical at first?
There was actually a handful, more than a handful, maybe 2 handfuls of officers that were charged to come to the Anaheim retreat. Everybody probably started off skeptical, and they ended the weekend excited. And from that, we formed a group of people that are in small groups that are working on developing this even more.
Tom, is there hopes for moving this across country and reaching the East Coast as well?
Well, absolutely. There's discussions. I've been already approached by the Salvation Army in Florida at the ARC level, and some other leaders in the recovery world have asked about this, and I've taken those inquiries up the line to the senior command in California to ask for some advice about how do we do this. And so there's an effort at hand that the word of what's happening in the Western Territory will get shared with the other territories, and then they'll have an opportunity to then experience it, and we'll probably be going. Yes, the big vision and that everybody thinks is that it will eventually be throughout the entire Salvation Army in the U.S. and maybe the world. I don't know. They do the ARCs in London, in England too, don't they, Captain?
I don't know if they're I'm not. I don't know if it's ARC, but I'm sure they have some kind of recovery programs.
Some kind of recovery. So
there's a lot of different recovery programs other than just ARC specific. Right.
So there's other things too within the Salvation Army outside of just the ARC system.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
There's ARPs. There's
Right.
other things that
Lighthouses.
they do.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of places where this could go. Just outside the 120 some odd ARCs that there are
And
in the country. But I mean, think about this, guys. The ARCs, it's like 20 or 25,000 men and women a year, maybe closer to 30, going through that ARC system. It's
Wow.
reaching more people with this, this consistent message, which is what Captain Tanya and I have been working on, this consistent message that can be presented around very competently and, consistently, again, throughout the system with great support, so that everywhere they go in the Salvation, they're hearing the same language, it's the same words, it's the same thing, the same recovery.
Right.
Think about the movement that can happen, and all those 20 or 30,000 are going back into the recovery communities.
Right. Exactly.
And all of a sudden, instead of one guy saying, I'm recovered, and everybody bashing him, it's 10 guys out of the ARC in the meeting saying, what? Can I be recovered? See, I see that.
Right.
And the command in the Salvation Army sees it too, because they're not selfish organization. They want it to breed outside of their walls. Major Nelson said, I'd love to see us take AA back worldwide, not just within our walls, but outside our walls, because the mission is save lives,
Right.
And I
whoever
think
they
that's
are.
going to happen. I
Right.
think it's happening.
Yeah.
I think it is happening. I think it is happening.
God knows, right? And God's just
God
going to
knows.
equip us. Yeah.
The four of us have talked before about how fast this has moved. And things like this just don't happen that quickly unless it's the hand of providence, right? I mean, it just doesn't. This is amazing. This thing is taken off like wildfire. What do you attribute that to, Captain Tanya?
Oh, Jesus, of course.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah. And I think too, just all of our hearts and our desire to see men really get their lives changed, and not just a surface type change. Like I tell guys all the time, you can make it to graduation and that doesn't mean anything. And I don't even care if you graduate if you don't get to the principle that you need, and that's to understand who Jesus is, right? And I think so many times we're just going through the motions to get to where we think we need to get, but really it's discipleship. It's coming along together to make change, real change, not just substance change or just surface change, but real heart changing stuff.
Roger, you have been a presenter at some of these retreats. You and I both have facilitated small groups at the retreats. There's a lot of power in those small groups, right?
Yeah, I'm actually, yes, there's tremendous power in the small groups because you have an intimate setting that everybody gets to open up and share what's on their mind and their heart and their soul. And I'm doing process groups at the Anaheim, which is about between 8 and 9 guys every week. And so continuing to watch men grow in their relationship with God, their recovery, and their relationship to what Came to Believe is doing in their lives. And it's powerful. I've never been more excited. And, I'll celebrate 28 years next month, and I realized that this is what God called me to do 28 years ago, and I didn't know it, and nobody told me about it, and here we are, and I'm so grateful. When I get in front of ARC or a process group, honestly, I'm lit up like a little kid, because it's when you know that you're doing precisely what Christ called you to do, there's nothing better. And that's what I try to share with the beneficiaries at ARC. I'm just like, guys, you do this, you'll never regret it. Your life will totally change.
Yeah. I every time I think about this, the whole thing that's going on, I think about that statement. First they came to Bach, and then they left to pray. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just mind blowing to see.
It is
this change in people's lives, and it's not a weekend, emotional high.
Right.
It's not. Well, I experienced a nice recovery retreat. No, it's a transition from being very sick to actually recovering, not just from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, but all aspects, right? Tom, we talk about that. This isn't just being recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. It goes deeper than that, right? Speak to that a little bit. We're going to be running out of time here in a second, but speak to this whole recovered versus recovery thing.
Well, the founders said they were recovered. The founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first page says we've recovered, and a few pages later it says recovered again, and then through the book it says we found a solution, and this is the miracle of it. I mean, there's many, many indications, Monty, that these guys found an answer, a solution, an end to the brokenness that they were experiencing. And it was not just alcohol. It was many things. They got a fourth dimension of existence in life. It meant that what they got was something much more than just relief from a substance. It was the, entrance into their character of an ability to now be successful on every level. And we see that today. Now, back in the 30s and 40s, alcohol was the most prominent symptom that they were dealing with. But even the book says we see where our way of living would have benefit for all. The founders knew that this way of life, which was just the life that Jesus taught us to live, would have everybody free from whatever it is that has them messed up and in bondage, whatever it is.
So basically living in the new creation that we are because of the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. And too often we don't live in that, and that's where he wants us to live it. In his glory and in his goodness.
Amen. And that whole living in the go thing. Okay, now go. And
live it.
And live it.
And make disciples of all nations.
Make disciples, yeah, it's a great commission.
Okay, what's coming up for Came to Believe Recovery and for Salvation Army as far as, is there something coming up with you guys here in the near future?
Yes, we have. Well, the committee and I are working together. We're going to do some more in the next few weeks. Things I think we're dialing in really how it's going to get spread to the rest of the territory. We're dialing on the front lines with Captain Tanya and the committee about the nuts and bolts of the actual program and things we want to add and refine and make sure are all ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
And then at the high command level, they're trying to figure out how to actually implement it then at the higher level. But the talks are on. That's in the next. We'll have that figured out before Christmas. I believe everybody wants something figured out. And then, but in January, the end of January, we will be in San Bernardino to go take the ARC through the program at the end of January.
Right. Wow.
So that's our next event with the Salvation Army is that. Beyond that, I've been talking, and there's been some rumor, and nobody's telling me not to, about where we're going to go next. The idea is there's a little bit of how, but we have a God that, I was talking to Major Nelson, who is the area commander, and, he said, 6 months ago, Roger and I sat in a room with him, and he didn't know how we were going to do what we've done. And I said, remember when we didn't know how this was going to get done? He said, well, yeah, you're right. I said, so let's not worry about it. Let's just keep going. We know what has to be done. Anyway, that's the future. Monty, we know that we're going to be in San Bernardino. We know some of these tactical things we're going to be working on in the next month. And then the future is all of us, Captain Tanya, the team, the majors. We're all very open and just looking forward to how it's going to roll. It's new for them. It's new for us. It's new bringing this all back. We want to do it very carefully, very intentionally, and stay very focused to make sure everybody is in unity, and it's been so far, and watch lives change. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Amen. So to any of the viewers out there, if you're looking for a program, if you work with somebody that needs a program, give us a call at 562-218-2355. And whether that's the Long Beach ARC or any of our other ARCs, we will help you figure out a place that you can go to get recovered.
Okay, one more time on that number.
562
Yep.
218
Yep.
2355.
And, listeners, it's absolutely free.
Absolutely.
When you walk in the door, it's food, it's clothes, it's a place to sleep, it's people that'll love you, it's a program, it's work, a little work.
WT, yep.
It's something I wasn't aware of in the recovery world. It is a gift from God what the Salvation Army does. It is
Right.
really, really something. And you're never asked for anything. As a beneficiary, they don't ask you for anything. They are only giving. You run into one of these officers like Captain Tanya, and I always build her up, and I think she should be a colonel. I'm working behind the scenes to try to get her to be a colonel. But the love in her heart for these men and women is true and real. I've spent a lot of time with her. I've watched her. There's nothing fake about her or any of the other officers I see.
Amen.
They've dedicated their life to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's an honor to know them as
Amen.
friends
Thank you.
and ministry partners. It makes me want to dig in and fight harder, knowing
Amen.
that there's others that do it just as much as we do.
I think my greatest joy is seeing a man change his life. And even after they graduate, the other night, it was Friday night, I believe, I had like 6 alumni calls. Captain, I need help with this. Captain, I need help with this. And it's not that they need help with something to gain. It's how do I go through this situation, right? And so it doesn't end at graduation.
No.
I tell the guys all the time, you come in the door, I love you because of Jesus. You leave this place, I love you because of our relationship that we have built. And that's exactly what Jesus calls us to do, to build relationships with each other, to build a relationship with him.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. In the meantime, for a listener's sake, Tom, speak to us really quickly about the Came to Believe Recovery podcast, so I'm not tooting my own horn.
Yeah, Came to Believe Recovery podcast goes every Wednesday.
Yep.
And we talk about all sorts of recovery subjects, guys. Many of the subjects that people in recovery are anxious about or wanting to learn about. It is all in the lens of the 12-step program as the founders did it. So, yep, we talk about God at the podcast. We do. We talk about how problems and issues and things in life can be solved by overlaying this 10, 11, and 12 process that you get handed after you do the step program. And we'd love to have you come and join. We'd love it if you don't agree with us, right, Monty? Come and
That's
tell
right.
us why we're not okay. We'll let you come on and
we answer email. Yeah.
we answer emails. But we do. It's the same thing, guys. It's just another avenue for us to be helping people. And we'd love for you to come on and listen to the stuff that we're talking about. We know it's the same conversations going on around the coffee pots in AA rooms all over the country and the world.
And listeners, by the way, if you are interested, you'd like to find more information about how you can attend a Came to Believe Recovery retreat, visit the website, cametobelieverecovery.org, and there's a schedule of where retreats are going on, where you can sign up, and that kind of thing. And let me tell you, is there a fee? Yeah, there's a fee. But let me tell you something. They're not charging you to take you through the steps. What they're doing is they got to pay for the convention hall or for whatever the facility is, the venue. They got to pay for that. Just like if you were to go to an AA conference and you got to pay a registration fee, right? So don't get stuck on that. That's not what it's about. But I encourage you to hook up with one of these retreats. You will never look at the 12 steps the same. You just won't. I promise you. And you'll understand what being recovered really, really, really means.
And if you don't have any money, come anyway. We'll let you. We've never turned anyone away.
Right.
We've never turned anyone away.
So there you go there. Well, we are out of time. Our closing song, I want to tell you about this really quickly, but thank you, Captain Tanya. Thank you so much for taking time to come on and do this. You are very, very busy, and we appreciate you more than we can adequately say. Right, Tom? Right, Roger?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Tom, thank you again, my friend. We'll see you on the podcast this week. Later, we're going to be talking about, by the way, showing grace when people fall. Yeah, that's going to be. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Roger, of course, as always, it is great to see your smiling face. All right. The closing song.
Yeah, you like it too, Tom.
Yeah, he does. The closing song is by who I believe is probably the genius of geniuses when it comes to guitar. This guy, I want you to listen to this. This is one man, just one man, playing one instrument, but it's multifaceted, and he's not doing it in a studio where he's doing different tracks. This is one track, one instrument. This is Phil Keaggy with his song, interestingly enough, entitled "The Salvation Army Band." Here's Phil Keaggy.
Gracious love reaching out to take me as I am, expecting I will do the best I can. You cover me, clothed with your own righteousness I am, but you made me, by grace I have found favor in the land. Whoa, cover me, cover me. Eternal life, a gift that has no end. Receiving, believing in the mercy you extend. You cover me, clothed with your own righteousness I stand. You made me a part of your salvation army band. A heart to God, a hand to man, saved to serve. Salvation army band, heart to God, the hand of man, saved to serve. Salvation army band. the glory of your presence within view. You cover me, clothed of your own righteousness I stand. You made me a part of your salvation army band. Woo!
Mr. Phil Keaggy, Salvation Army Band. That's a solo performance and just absolutely amazing. For more of his work, you can visit his website at philkeaggy.com or follow the links here at Take 12 Recovery Radio. A very special thank you to our guest CEO of Came to Believe Recovery, Tom Williams, and, of course, Captain Tanya Garrett, the program administrator for the Long Beach Adult Rehabilitation Center of the Salvation Army, doing the most good. And, of course, our good friend and Take 12 Recovery Radio contributor, Roger McDermott from Huntington Beach. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with the rest of the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for each and every one of you. Bye-bye.
Don't let the weights of the past keep you down. There's a melody here to turn it around. In each story and song you'll find a friend, a chorus of courage that'll never end.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.